and I thought I'd take some time to talk today about glute activation because this is something that I consciously and unconsciously bring into my classes all the time. I've been pretty fascinated with glute activation ever since the training I attended last summer, where we focused on that a lot as support for the spine. Yoga practices in general already have a fair amount of glute activating exercises, which you'll see in a minute. But there's always ways to go through these where you're more intentional. So the difference between doing bridge pose or crescent lunge and really directing the energy into certain areas of the body to facilitate greater strengthening versus just kind of like throwing yourself into it and expecting the benefit without really doing the work. So in this really short, maybe 10-minute practice, we'll experience the compare and contrast of kind of going into a movement blindly and not really focusing on glute activation, and then really digging in there and waking up this muscle. Um, it's beneficial, again, not only for the support of the spine, but for the body overall, and especially when the glutes are these really large muscles, it can take a while to wake up energetically. So it might take a minute, and just be patient with yourself as you go through this practice. It's okay if it doesn't make sense right away, or if you're not sure if you're doing it right or what it's supposed to feel like. It's pretty common, especially if you sit a lot or you aren't really in touch with your backside, for things to feel a little dormant there. So just know that, and keep returning to this practice if you want to just get in touch with your glutes. So all that said, we'll start laying down on your back. So when you lay down, and we'll start working into some bridge work, just so you can really tap into right away that felt sense of glutes turning on. So I'll have you take your feet under your knees, parallel hips with distance, and just for a moment take a breath out and draw your rib cage in, draw your low belly and your waistline in. And I'm miming this corseting or wrapping sensation just so we're bracing and engaging through our low belly, but we're not like gripping or clenching overly so. So from here, just take a moment to lift your hips up. Don't even think about it too much. Hang out, feel around, notice what it's like just to be here for a breath. You can even take your hands to your backside and kind of palpate. Do you feel any engagement through the glutes or the hamstrings if you can reach back there? Just kind of for your own information. And then slowly lower back down. So we're going to try that again. Take two. This time before we lift up, we'll do that same corseting, that exhale and wrapping sensation. Try to maintain that as you now drive through your heels and squeeze your glutes a little bit. So go ahead and turn on your glute muscles, your butt muscles, about 75%. Now keep pushing, pushing, pushing. I'm lifting up my toes to exaggerate that heel drive action and using that to generate the lift so that I'm not cranking from my lower back. We're really using these muscles on the backside of my legs to lift the hips. You can even imagine here like your heel bones are magnetically being pulled toward your shoulder blades, and that'll help turn on your hamstrings a little more. Take another breath here, really push through your feet down into the mat. And then slowly lower. So if you wanted to, you could take a couple of rounds of that, just lifting and lowering and trying to sense that engagement and support through the lower half of your body. If you're like, oh, it was pretty okay, I think I got it, maybe you come up to that bridge and just play with lifting one heel at a time, trying to keep your hips and pelvis in neutral and stable. Maybe you even lift one foot at a time. And this is where it really gets challenging because your hips are going to want to wobble side to side, especially if one glute is a little more dormant than the other. You might dunk in or kind of dip through the pelvis. So just do your best. Maybe hands on your hips will help you feel this to lift and lower. You take that a couple times just until you start to feel a little bit of a tremor or a shake. And then you come on down. And you might take a moment to windshield wiper the legs and just bring a little bit of ease into the lower body. And then we're going to translate this onto hands and knees. So different relationship with gravity, different orientation. Come into your table pose, maybe a little round of cat and cow, just to sense that range of motion in your spine. And then again, we'll come into that neutral position where you're lifting through the lower belly, kind of pulling the waistline in. So I'm not fully rounding my spine, but there's this sense of lift and core engagement. We're going to keep that and take one foot back behind us, trying not to undo anything in the spine. So if you feel it collapsing, push the mat away and gather back in. From here, lift the foot up, take an inhale. As you exhale, you're going to squeeze that heel towards your seat, like you're moving through mud or water, some fixed substance. You're creating a little bit of resistance. Then you'll inhale, re-extend. A couple more times, squeezing, creating resistance, heel to seat, and extend. You could do this 2 or 3 more times, just kind of tapping into the back of the hamstring. And then maybe you stay and hold, really squeeze the heel toward your seat and take little pulses up. So now we're driving right from the base of the glute muscle toward the ceiling. A little lift. I'm kind of losing my core engagement here, my flexible lower back. Ooh. When you've had enough of that, you can lower and repeat on the other side. I'm going to skip just for time's sake, but you can always pause the video and just do the same thing, about 3 sets, extending and bending on the other side, and then pulsing about 5, or just until you feel it. You can trust yourself in the feedback that you get from your body. Okay, so now we're going to add on to that. So let's take that same leg that we started with. I have my left leg, you can do either. You're going to bend or extend and then bend, and then this time you're going to open that knee out to the side. So now we're getting into the external rotators. Drag that knee up towards your elbow. It's okay if it doesn't touch. Draw it in toward your nose underneath you, internally rotating, and re-extend. So we'll do that again. You'll bend, heel toward your seat. Open the knee out toward the side so the inner knee now grazes along the floor as you tap toward your elbow. Slowly circle in and come back out. Let's do one more that direction, heel to butt. Open it out. Slowly, slowly, trying to resist momentum as you bring it in. Now we're going to go the other way. So you'll bring the knee toward your nose. Open out to the side, kick the foot back, and then drive the knee in toward your nose. So just circling the leg, circling the femur bone in the hip socket. You might feel some stickiness or resistance at various points. That's all okay. And then we're going to add on again. It's getting very exciting here. So you'll draw your knee toward your chest, and then just do your best to bring that foot forward outside of your left hand. So you're going wide. Again, notice what it's like for just a moment here to untuck or to tuck your back toes under, lift the knee, and just kind of lift the hips up. It's okay, it's not so bad. Now return the knee back down to the floor. Bring a little more intention in. Drive through your left heel like you can make an imprint into your mat, really push. You might even feel your hips lift back a little bit. Now lift that back knee up, elevating your thigh bones toward the ceiling. So you're pushing and lifting the hips. And maybe walk your hands forward and drag that back foot in, giving a little tap. Send it back, back knee down. We're going to come back to that extended leg behind us, and we'll do that again. So it's knee to nose, kick the foot forward. Maybe you just pause here, driving through your heel, turning on the back side of this leg. Maybe you lean slightly forward, you can walk your hands forward and tap. Woo. Heel to heel. Send it back. And then the key here is to move slowly. Final option, if you want it, is to take it forward and maybe float the hands up as well. Super deep work for your glutes and your core. When you've had enough of that, you could take 5 rounds, you could take 10 rounds. Just trying to smooth out the transitions. You can take a break. So I'm actually going to switch just so I don't overdo one side or the other. We're going to add on to this now into a crescent lunge. So we'll take the same principles in a crescent. Very commonly used pose. You'll kick your right heel back. This time send the right foot through between your hands and lift your back knee up again. So without thinking about it too much, just come up to stand on your legs. Reach your arms up. Feels pretty good, not so bad. Now bring your hands back down for a moment. Even bring your back knee down and do that same thing that we just did. Push into your heel like crazy. Drive down through the floor. See about lifting your back knee up, elevating the thigh bones toward the ceiling, and then maybe lifting your fingertips up and floating your hands. So we're low over this front leg. Maybe you bring your belly just right above your thigh, that cinching and wrapping sensation that we talked about before. Pushing through your heel and even taking this outer hip backing in. It's going to want to lean out to the side and dump into the joint. Keep it backing in. Whew, take another breath. And then see if everything else can remain steady as you push through the foot, push, 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 rise all the way up, and then slowly come back down. And you can do that a couple times to really start to light up the glute. Rising, pushing through the heel as you keep your spine steady, and then hinging from the hip to come back down. If you wobble, it's okay. If you fall, totally fine. You do this as many times as you want. Again, I'm going to keep it short just for the sake of explanation and time. But afterward, if you want to shake it out in down dog, that might feel really sweet. Take a deep breath or two. And the last place we're going to test this out is in our locust pose or Shalavasana, that back bend that we do on our belly. So you'll lay it all the way down. And from here, lengthen your legs back behind you and separate them about hips width distance. So it's almost to the edges of your mat, just to give your lower back a lot of room. From here, engage your legs, so reach them back and really energize the quadriceps and the quads, which are the same thing. And then from there, root the pelvis down, so you're pushing your pubic bone toward the floor. And just for a moment, with your arms by your side, go ahead and lift. And as you're lifting the upper body, keeping the feet down, just take a hand back there and notice what's engaging. Feel your glutes, your hips, your back, just kind of palpating the muscles. You should feel those ropey muscles on your back, your erectors, helping to lift you up. And then go ahead and relax. Now we're going to do a compare contrast. So the next thing you'll do here is push or engage the legs, engage the quadriceps and the quads. And then root the pubic bone down and start to squeeze. You can even reach back there and make sure, yes, I'm squeezing the muscles of your glutes. So we're going to start to engage these big muscles first so that we don't crank too much on the lower spine. Keep this engagement here. Reach your hands back and then start to lengthen the spine forward and up. So you'll notice that as you reach back, the back is still engaged. It's not that it's not, but we originate. We start with the glutes and then we rise up through the rest of the spine. Gently release. You can sit back, child's pose, and take a breath. So that's pretty much it in terms of a basic introduction. Again, these principles are found in so many of the classes that I teach, and you can work with them in so many fun and different ways, but this is just a nice primer for understanding that mechanism of driving through the heel, lighting up the back line of the leg, and just starting to get things moving. So I hope it was helpful and informative, and I welcome your feedback and your comments. Namaste.